Have you ever paused and really wondered why do some women choose to live alone? No boyfriend, no partner, not even a hint that they're looking. It's not about heartbreak, it's not about loneliness, and it's definitely not about a lack of options. No, the truth is a bit more uncomfortable, a bit more raw. Because when a woman decides to live alone, truly alone, is not giving up on life. She's not disappearing. She's doing something much more radical. She's finding herself. And that kind of self discovery, it's not loud. It doesn't show up with applause or hearts or thumbs up. It's quiet, deep, soul shaking. It's built in silence, in strength, and in a kind of freedom most people still don't really get. No, she's not cold. She's not bitter. She's just selective. And no, she's not lost. She just stopped chasing what wasn't worth catching. Because when you've spent years burning for people who never wanted to feel your warmth, something in you shifts. You stop offering your fire to hands that only bring water. There's something powerful, no, threatening about a woman who doesn't need a relationship to feel whole. It challenges the story we've all been fed, that women must be chosen, must be saved, must be validated by love. She's not buying into that story anymore. And that's terrifying to some people, especially those who build their identity around being needed. Because most men, they don't know what to do with a woman who doesn't need saving. And most women, they're still figuring out how to see that woman in the mirror without flinching. Carl Jung once said that what we deny in ourselves becomes our shadow. And these women, these quietly powerful, alone but not lonely women, they're living embodiments of that shadow. They're what many secretly dream of becoming but are still too scared to embrace. They don't shout their desires into the void. They whisper their decisions to themselves. They're not putting themselves on stage, waiting to be admired. They're walking off the stage entirely, choosing peace over performance. They're not hunting for Prince Charming. They're building castles out of quiet. And that makes people uncomfortable. Because while society tells us to hurry, to couple up, to find someone fast, these women have found a rhythm that's slower, deeper, wiser. And that's why they get judged, criticized, called names, branded as too picky, too proud, too distant. But here's what most don't understand. Behind that supposed absence is a presence so full it spills into every room she enters. She doesn't want just any kind of love. She wants one that doesn't shrink her, one that doesn't require her to make herself small just to fit inside someone else's life. And until that love shows up, if it ever do, she's not waiting with bated breath. She's living, expanding, becoming. Maybe you're listening to this thinking, okay, but isn't that kind of sad? Isn't that just pride dressed up as independence? And maybe, deep down, you feel a tug, a tiny question forming behind your ribs, one you can't quite ignore. What if that quiet path she's walking is actually the only one that leads to real love? What if solitude isn't emptiness, but sanctuary? See, most people don't understand this kind of woman. They look at her and think, she's cold, or she's distant, or worse, she must be broken. But that couldn't be further from the truth. She didn't build her solitude to shut the world out. She built it to stop losing herself in people who never saw her clearly. And Carl Jung agained it when he said, everything we don't face in ourselves gets projected onto others. That's why so many women confuse solitude with failure, with abandonment, with lack. But for her, solitude isn't a void, it's fertile soil. While others keep trying to fill themselves with external connections, this woman turned inward. She sat with herself, faced her past, her wounds, her fears. She didn't choose to be alone because she was heartbroken. She chose to be alone because she finally healed. She stopped calling it love when it only made her feel smaller. She stopped craving attention that came with conditions. She didn't stop believing in love. She just stopped settling for a version of love that made her doubt her worth. This woman knows chaos. She's loved until she was unrecognizable. She's begged, she's clung, she's given everything. And then one day, she stopped. Not with bitterness, but with wisdom. The kind of wisdom that doesn't come from books. It comes from falling apart, from rebuilding, from learning that enough is not a myth, it's a boundary. What you see in her now isn't distance, it's emotional maturity. And let's be real, maturity scares people. Because maturity isn't about playing games or reciting cute lines, it's about showing up, being present, being honest even when it's uncomfortable. She's not unreachable because she's broken, she's unreachable because she's whole. And being whole in a world that profits off your emptiness, that's revolutionary. That kind of woman, she inspires two reactions: admiration and fear. Admiration from those who are also on their way to wholeness. Fear from those who still think love only counts when it comes with sacrifice and need. But she's not looking to complete anyone. She's looking to overflow with someone who's already met themselves. And until that happens, she's good. She's not hiding. She's not giving up. She's not angry. She's preserving. She knows the difference between isolation and preservation, and she's done pretending she's something she's not, just to fit into a picture-perfect story that never felt true. So the next time someone looks at a woman who lives alone and says, "Poor thing," remember this: she's not a poor thing. She's a powerful thing. You know what else she's tired of hearing? "You're too picky. Maybe your standards are too high. Nobody's perfect." And she just smiles. That kind of slow, knowing smile. The kind of smile that says, "I've heard this before and I'm still not buying it." Because what most people call picky, she calls the bare minimum. The minimum she took years, decades, even to realize she actually deserves. She's not out here hunting for perfection. She's not chasing fairy tales. She's looking for someone who's done the inner work. Someone who's been through their own fires, faced their own shadows. Someone who can meet her at the same emotional altitude. And let's be honest, that's not something you stumble across on just any street corner or dating app. So yes, she might seem intimidating, maybe even aloof, but it's not because she's playing hard to get, it's because she's not playing at all. What unsettles people the most isn't what she says, it's what she represents. She's living proof that happiness doesn't have to be dependent on anyone else, that a woman can find joy, peace, and purpose without being someone's other half. And that shakes people to their core, because it unravels the idea that a woman's value is tied to her relationship status. It strips power from those who once thrived on her uncertainty, her self-doubt, her need to be chosen. Some men feel threatened. Some women feel judged. But she's not here to fight with anyone. She's just being. And that being, that authenticity, it acts like a mirror. It reflects back to others all the places they've abandoned themselves. And not everyone's ready to see that. She's not rushing to be understood. She's not speeding up her timeline to make others comfortable. She's moving at her own pace. While the world is busy swiping, scrolling, and chasing like as she's diving deeper, she's looking for soul-level bonds, not superficial attention. She's not attracted to charm anymore. Not interested in perfectly timed texts or curated personas. She wants presence. Real presence. And when she says no, it's not a game. It's truth. When she walks away, it's not drama. It's self-defense. When she stays home, instead of going out with someone who only offers surface-level conversation, it's not arrogance. It's clarity. And that clarity yearned through pain, introspection, and 1,000 quiet awakenings is the most powerful revolution she's ever led. She's no longer living to please. She's living to be. And that simple act, being fully herself, unapologetically, it makes her dangerous. Not dangerous in the way society fears violence, but dangerous in the way authenticity threatens the system. Because society still pushes this idea that a woman alone must be broken, bitter, or too proud. That if she were just a little less, she'd be loved. But she knows better now. Carl Jung once said, "Those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken." She chose the latter, the hard way, the real way. She looked inward, deeply, bravely. She didn't just rearrange the furniture of her personality, she gutted the house and rebuilt the foundation. She took off the masks, faced the voices in her head, Saturday with the ghosts of her past, and didn't flinch. She stopped measuring her worth by the people who stayed or left. She stopped believing that love was something she had to earn through pain, sacrifice, or performance. Now, she sees herself through her own eye sand that changes everything. She no longer crumbles at rejection. She no longer begs for space in anyone's life because she knows presence should never be begged for. It should be invited. And if it's not, she'll decline gracefully, quietly, completely. She's still human. Of course, she longs for love. She still wants to be held, seen, chosen, but not at the cost of shrinking, not at the cost of editing herself down to fit inside someone else's idea of enough. She spent too long trying to fit into molds, too small for the soul she now carries. Now, she only offers herself where there's room for her to be whole. That takes a maturity not many are ready for. It takes awareness, a willingness to sit with your own mess, clean it up, and not expect someone else to save you. She's not looking for fairy tales. She's looking for a soul alliance. A connection where two whole people meet not to complete each other, but to expand together. Where there's no domination, no submission, just growth, mutual respect, shared depth. And if that feels like too much for some, so be it. She'd rather wait than feed on emotional crumbs. To many, that kind of standard sounds like arrogance, like ego, like some kind of wound speaking. But really, it's just self-love. Raw, grounded, unapologetic self-love. We're witnessing a new kind of woman. A woman who no longer wants to be desired, she wants to be respected. A woman who's not waiting to be chosen, she's doing the choosing. A woman who didn't give up on love, she just gave up on losing herself in the process. She doesn't raise her voice, she doesn't need to. Her presence shifts the energy in the room long before she speaks. And that's not mysticism, that's energy, that's alignment. That's someone who's been to hell and back and returned, not with bitterness, but with peace. Carl Jung said, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration." She gets that now. She doesn't just accept her light, she embraces her shadows too, her chaos, her softness, her rage, her silence. She's not here to fit someone else's idea of perfect. She's here to be, all of it, fully. So when she's alone, it's not a tragedy, it's not a failure, it's a declaration. She's not going to cut herself in half just to be loved by someone who only knows how to hold pieces. She longs for love, but not love that binds or blurs. Love that adds, that expands, that liberates. And until that love shows up, she walks her path firmly, fiercely, freely. Here's what most people don't see. This woman, she didn't just decide to walk alone one day. She earned it. Every step she takes now is paved with memories. Disappointments that used to hurt, but now they teach. Every no she speaks is a declaration of self-respect. Every absence she chooses is a quiet reminder that she will never again beg for love, for attention, for scraps of affection. She doesn't need to prove herself anymore. Not to friends, not to family, not to strangers who still believe a woman without a partner is a woman without direction. No, her certainty doesn't come from validation. It comes from the deepest part of her soul, where her power has been quietly rebuilding all along. She's not dangerous because she's bitter. She's dangerous because she's clear. She's not who she used to be, the woman who once begged to be loved, to be seen, to be chosen. Something inside her broke. Yes, but it was that very break that cracked her open and set her free. Because sometimes the soul doesn't find its new shape through perfect peace. It finds it in the collapse, in the ruins, in the unraveling of who we thought we were. Carl Jung once said, "The tree that grows to heaven must have roots that reach down to hell." And that's what she lived through. She descended into the darkest corners of her story, not just her own pain, but inherited wounds, generational silence, the emotional labor carried by every woman who came before her. She faced it all. The expectations, the manipulation disguised as love, the fear of being too much and not enough at the same time. And one by one, she started saying no. No to repeating cycles. No to fixing what was never hers to heal. No to calling suffering love just because it was familiar. And when she said no, the world didn't celebrate. It tried to convince her she was wrong, selfish, cold. But she stood her ground, first with trembling hands, then with clarity, and eventually with unshakable presence. Because once you've lived in your own abyss, you stop fearing absence. You start nourishing yourself with silence. You learn to warm yourself with your own presence. You no longer let people invade your peace just because they're lonely. She's not unreachable. She just doesn't entertain what doesn't feel real anymore. There's a huge difference between opening your heart and letting someone tear you apart. Yes, she opens, absolutely. But only to those who come in truth, not performance, not charm, not well-rehearsed promises. She's seen enough now to know the difference between someone showing up and someone just showing off. Her intuition? Razor sharp. Her energy? A filter. She doesn't need to question everything anymore as she feels it, right away. And if it doesn't resonate, she walks, not with drama, not with spite, but with certainty. Because her transformation wasn't cosmetic, it was archetypal. It's as if she tapped into something ancient, something that's always been inside women but often forgotten. The truth that we weren't born to please. We were born to express. Not to be shaped, but to overflow. And in that remembering, something awakened. A wildness. An emotional sovereignty. A deep-rooted knowing. She's not just a woman walking alone. She's in communion with herself, with her essence, with something much larger. And so, when people try to reduce her, label her, shame her, explain her away, nothing sticks. Because she no longer lives to fit in. She lives to expand. She doesn't compete. She radiates. She doesn't chase. She attracts without effort, without compromise. She's not waiting to be chosen. She chooses. And that reversal of logic, it confuses people, especially those who still try to control the feminine, to tame it, to box it, to measure it by its appeal or availability. But she's not playing that game. She crossed the threshold, and on the other side, she discovered a new kind of love, the kind that doesn't complete you, the kind that overflows. Because the truth is, when a woman chooses to walk alone, the world panics. It rushes to convince her she's making a mistake. Don't wait too long. You'll regret it. You're missing out. But deep inside her chest, something is aligning, quietly, surely. It's not pride. It's not rebellion. It's wisdom. A wisdom that only comes from silence, from introspection, from choosing yourself and again, without apology. Carl Jung called it individuation, becoming fully who you are, without masks, without compromise, without shrinking. And when that happens, when a woman knows who she is, nothing outside her has more power than what's rising within her. She doesn't slam doors. She closes them gently, without resentment. She doesn't ghost. She steps away with grace when a space no longer nourishes her. She doesn't need loud explanations. Her peace speaks for itself. Yes, she still dreams, she still hopes, she still loves. But she's not willing to lose herself again to feel temporarily desired. She's already lived that life and it cost her too much. So now, she offers herself only where there's room to be whole. Not half, not dimmed, not reshaped, to suit someone else's version of love. She wants soul-level connection, partnership, not possession, intimacy, not intensity, growth, not games. And if that's too much for some, that's okay. She'd rather be alone in truth than partnered in illusion, because that's not arrogance. That's the purest form of self-love. We're not just looking at a single woman here. We're looking at a new archetype. She's not following rules, she's writing her own. Not out of defiance, but out of alignment. She's the woman who walked away from almosts and maybes and somedays, who chose to wait for real. She's not loud about her power, but she is power. And when she moves, the world shifts. Not because she demands it, but because she embodies it. So, if you felt something stir inside you while listening to this, if something tugged at your memory or cracked open a quiet place in your soul, then maybe, just maybe, you're ready too. Ready for a love that begins with you. A love that asks for presence. That honors your truth. That doesn't want to fix you, but to witness you. And if that love hasn't come yet, maybe it's because you needed to become the woman who no longer settles. So don't hide your journey. Don't dim your light. If this message found you at the right moment, if it reminded you of the fire inside you, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this with the women you know who need to remember their power. Comment, subscribe, not out of habit but out of choice. Because when something touches your soul, the least we can do is let it keep echoing.